This tutorial will teach you how to create a cute round throw pillow that will use up some of those bits of fabric scraps that you have left over. If you want to use the pattern that I made in these steps, you can download the pattern in the blog article linked in the description below. The supplies that you'll need for this tutorial are fabric scraps in various sizes, something for stuffing the pillow. I use more fabric scraps that I've been collecting from my sewing projects, something to cut with, and of course just your basic sewing supplies. If you are not using my sewing pattern, which you can find in the description below, start by making a circle, which you can measure out with just paper and pencil, and then you want to draw whatever design you want inside of this circle. Now you want to cut out all of the pieces and add seam allowance. To add the little side edge for the pillow, you want to get the circumference. So the easiest way to do this is actually using the math. So the circumference is pi, so 3.14 times the diameter. So that makes 31.4 inches. However, if you really just don't want to deal with the math, you can just measure around the side of the circle. Once you have your measurement, you will make a rectangle 2 inches by half of the circumference because I'm cutting 2 pieces. Next, you want to get your fabric scraps or whatever fabric you want to use for this and arrange your fabric scraps however you want. Use your pattern pieces to make sure that your scraps are big enough. And then you want to cut out all of your pattern pieces. Now we're ready to start putting everything together. So start by stitching around the inner corners of each of those arrow pieces. The stitching will help reinforce the corner, and then you want to clip to the stitching. I find it useful to add a little dot of fray check to keep this point even a little bit more reinforced. Now you want to sew your arrow pieces together. To sew the points, you actually need to spread the inner corners so that you can sew each side of the arrow. Then when you sew the seam, you want to pivot the needle exactly on that point that you clipped to. Once sewn, you want to press the seam towards the point of the fabric. You'll have these little tabs that are poking out of the edge. You can go ahead and clip off those tabs. Now is the tricky part. You want to sew the center circle in place. Because adding the seam allowance makes this circle bigger, you need to ease it in around the seam. I found it easier to hand baste the circle before sewing it. That way when you do sew it with the machine, you don't accidentally have fabric tucks and puckers. Once sewn, you want to clip the curves all the way around to prevent it from puckering on the front of the pillow. And then you want to press the circle out so that the center circle lays flat on the back of the pillow. We'll repeat the process for the second side of the pillow. In this case, for the other side of the pillow, I did a different tutorial for a different way that you can use scraps to make a pillow, so check out that tutorial for the other face of my pillow. Once you have your 2 pillow faces sewn up, you want to get the outer loop, the outer edge sewn. Sew the 2 edges of your rectangle pieces together so that you have a loop. Now you want to sew the loop to the pillow face. Then when you sew the second pillow face onto the other side of the rectangle, make sure to leave a small gap so that you'll be able to turn the pillow right side out and then add the stuffing in too. The next step is, of course, to turn the pillow right side out and then stuff the pillow. I am using some leftover scraps that I have from all my sewing projects. You can stuff your pillow with whatever you want. Now all you have to do is sew up the gap. You can use an invisible hand stitch if you want, or if you're lazy like me, just machine sew it. It will be slightly visible, but it won't look that bad. And you're finished. Now you have your new color blocked pillow.